Alright, so here we go with Science Passage 2, Electric Boogaloo. So again, we're going to take a look at this. So this one is what they call the conflicting viewpoints passage. Most of these science passages are relatively straightforward. You're just like, okay, here's some graphs. I'm going to look at the graphs, see what the graphs say, pick the answer that matches what the graphs say. It's a little bit more complicated. In this case, you actually have, let's see, here it's 3, sometimes there can be up to 4 different viewpoints about some phenomenon. In this case, the phenomenon is about monarch butterflies migrating to Mexico, and then they store body lipids to use as a source of energy, and you got 3 hypotheses. So 2 options here. If you've seen the reading, this will be similar to that. You can either read everything and kind of try to form an understanding, or you can just search for keywords as you answer the questions. I'm going to go for the keywords one because it's just a little bit tedious to try to read everything. One thing to notice really quickly is that these 3 hypotheses, though, do have very similar structures. So like, monarch butterflies require energy from stored lipids for migration and during their overwintering period. Monarch butterflies require energy from stored lipids for migration, but not during the overwintering period. Monarch butterflies require energy from stored lipids during the overwintering period, but not for migration. This pattern is repeated. They basically say, they list the different scientists' hypotheses on whatever, details are differentiated. So let's just take a look at the questions and again see if we can hunt for keywords. Which hypothesis, if any, asserts that monarch butterflies store lipids during 2 distinct periods? Store lipids during 2 distinct. So require energy from stored lipids for migration and during the overwintering period. So that doesn't say whether they are storing lipids. Butterflies first store lipids before they begin their migration. Okay, so that's 1. During migration, the stored lipids are converted to energy. When the butterflies reach overwintering sites, they must store lipids again. Okay, so that's 2 storing lipids. So at this point, we found that they store lipids at 2 points. Notice our multiple choice options. There are no combinations. It's either 1, 2, 3, or none. So it's got to be 1. Which hypothesis, if any, asserts that monarch butterflies require energy from stored lipids neither for migration nor for the overwintering? I think that we already read the first sentence. Monarch butterflies require energy from stored lipids during their overwintering period. Oh, but not for migration. They need it for migration, not overwintering. They need it for both. Okay, so none say that we don't need... None of the hypotheses say that the lipids are not needed for either migration or the overwintering period, right? They all say that you need lipids during at least one of these periods. Based on hypothesis 3, which of the following figures best depicts the change in the lipid mass of a monarch butterfly from beginning of migration to end of migration? Okay, let's see what they say about migration. The butterflies do not store lipids before they begin their migration. Lipids are stored during migration. Therefore, okay, so here's the key sentence, right? Lipid mass continuously increases from the beginning of migration to the end of migration. So we're looking for a continuous increase of lipid mass. J is the only one that looks anything like that. This is an increase, then decrease. This is decrease. This is flat. Assume that changes in the body mass of a monarch butterfly are caused only by the changes in mass of the butterfly's stored lipids. The statement, the percent of a monarch butterfly's body mass that is made up of lipids is greater at the beginning of migration than at the end of migration, is supported by which hypothesis? Okay. So we already know that the lipid mass increases for hypothesis 3, so we can immediately throw out answer D here. That's just like, based on our previous answer. So we should have more lipids at the beginning of migration than at the end. So let's see what they say about migration. During migration, as stored lipids are converted to energy, lipid mass continually decreases. Okay, so hypothesis 1, you would have a decrease in lipid mass. The butterflies store lipids before they begin their migration. During migration, as stored lipids are converted to energy, lipid mass continually decreases. Okay, so both hypothesis 1 and 2 would support a decrease in body mass made of lipids during migration. Okay. To store lipids, monarch butterflies convert sugar from nectar they have consumed into lipids. Supporter of which hypothesis, if any, would be likely to claim that to ensure the butterflies can store lipids for the overwintering period, nectar must be present at the butterflies' overwintering sites. Okay. So basically, they need to eat at the overwintering site. So which says that they need to eat at the overwintering site? So we'll skip the migration. When the butterflies reach the overwintering sites, they must store lipids again before beginning the overwintering period. Okay, so hypothesis 1 does. Because energy from stored lipids is not required during the overwintering period, butterflies do not store lipids while at the overwintering sites. Okay, so not 2. The butterflies arrive at the overwintering sites with enough lipids to provide themselves with energy, so they do not store lipids. Okay, so just in hypothesis 1, do they need some stuff at the overwintering sites in order to store lipids? Okay. Which of the following statements about lipids... We're going to do that. Which of the following statements about lipids in monarch butterflies is consistent with all 3 hypotheses? Okay, let's try to read these, because usually you can pick kind of the vaguest one. The butterflies' lipid masses do not change during the overwintering period. No, definitely some of them will change, because you need stored lipids. That means you're going to eat those lipids. Butterflies' lipid masses change during migration. This is possible. Butterflies use energy from stored lipids during the overwintering period. This is also possible. The butterflies use energy from stored lipids for migration. Okay, I know that hypothesis 3 does not say this. So let's see. Is there one where they do not use lipids over the overwintering period? Energy from stored lipids is not required during the overwintering period, right here in hypothesis 2. Okay, so it's not that one. It's just that they change during migration. Notice this word change does not say whether they increase or decrease. In hypothesis 1 and 2, I think they decrease. In hypothesis 3, it increases. When the monarch butterflies use their stored lipids, the lipids must be broken down to produce energy-rich molecules that can readily be used by cells. Which of the following molecules is produced as a direct result from the breakdown of lipids? So, you might know that you don't need to know hardly any science for these tests. Here's one where you have to know some science. So energy-rich molecules that can readily be used, that's basically ATP. Starch is energy-rich but not readily usable. You have to break it down. It's also only found in plants, not in animals. DNA is not an energy molecule, and amino acids are to build proteins, not to, again, provide energy for the organism. Okay, that's it. So that wasn't so bad. Generally, you can do a pretty good job of hunting for keywords, especially because, all these hypotheses are talking about the same phenomenon, so generally you can see some sort of keywords come up again and again. Here they did it really nicely because the structure is actually consistent between all 3 hypotheses, meaning that, you can really just look in the same places in the paragraph in order to figure out where the answers are. So we're going to pick up again with the next section. And, good luck. Keep chasing that 36. Stay savvy.